We start this hour of Fox and Friends with a Fox News alert and an exclusive, an up-close look at the crisis at our southern border in the Rio Grande Valley.
All right, you got border agents fighting through rough terrain and a surge of migrants. Nearly 200 illegal immigrants, by the way, apprehended in a matter of just hours in front of our cameras.
Griff Jenkins watched it all unfold, and he joins us now live in McAllen, Texas. Griff?
Good morning, Brian Ainsley and Steve. I'm just feet from the border here in McAllen. But, you know, the Border Patrol is stretched thin. They're overwhelmed. They're tired, and they have had a surge of migrants that is unbelievable, topping 10-year highs. But when some of those migrants don't want to be caught, it hasn't stopped the dedication or drive of our men in the green uniform. Watch. It's unbelievably difficult terrain. I'm cut, my gloves torn. These men rushing through here, and we found a group. This is the first one we found. Just nothing but thorns, bushes, bugs, snakes, spiders. This is the spotlight. You can see this being put. There they are. They've got two more.
Both of them actually tried to run. This one right here was hiding underneath this brush to my left, and this one right here got up from the brush and took off running southbound, but I was able to get him before he got away.
This is the brush underneath here, right where I am, where the last illegal crosser was laid down, and Herman had to crawl in like this and go through these bushes and thorns. It's just treacherous. And there are other challenges on the border. We had, as you mentioned, Brian, nearly 200 of the family units surrendering to our agents there, Agent Herman Rivera. But while we were having groups of 50 or 60 coming to us just a half a mile up or down the border to our east or west, we had smuggling efforts going on and other groups coming. It just won't stop coming. It was 12,000 in the last 12 days yesterday. We'll find out what today's numbers are. They will be high again, and we have the problem with where to put them. They can only take 3,300 in the detention custody area here. They've got 6,000. The numbers are going the wrong direction. We went into the processing center yesterday and saw just how hard they're getting hit. They have $12.5 million in their budget for the facility for fiscal year 19, and they've already spent that. They're going to need more money as well. This, as Secretary Nielsen will make a trip today to Yuma, Arizona. And while a lot of people here in Texas are still fearing the president might shut the border down, the president as well will travel to the border on Friday to Calexico, California, guys.
So Griff, what we understand is catch and release is back. The AP reporting over the air in the New Mexico sector, they're letting thousands go into Greyhound buses and go into the city because they have nowhere to put them. Are you guys at that situation around there where people are just catch and release is back in full force?
Absolutely, Brian. The processing center we were at yesterday, which is where they go before they are put in a detention area, there's space for 1,500. They have 2,400. I asked the woman in charge in our off-camera briefing, I said, what are you going to do with them? She said, we have no choice but to release them. They will likely go to the Catholic Charities, Sister Pimentel, or other areas because they want to care for the migrants and their safety, not just turn them loose on the streets where they're very vulnerable. But the reality is, the higher the numbers get, the faster they're being released. And when they get released, those that seek to not go through the proper legal asylum process, they just want to get caught and released, well, they're calling back home in Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador, and the magnet and draw to make that 3,000-mile journey that I've now made twice is growing stronger.
Now, Griff, what if they're caught with drugs on them? Do they go to a prison, or do they go to those detention centers too, where they're caught and then released?
Case by case, but they will be prosecuted if they are smuggling. And the group we went in after, which took several hours, you should see our producer AJ. He's covered in marks across his face because you're just in such thick thorns. Yeah. They were evading capture. They will be prosecuted and likely all deported. We thought there were about 11 in there. We captured 8 of them. And so if you evade being apprehended, right, you will be likely deported quickly.
All right. Griff Jenkins, along with A.J. Hall, down on our southern border right there in McAllen. We thank you very much. It does sound as if the president has kind of been backing off on the I'm going to close the border unless Mexico helps us out, because yesterday in the Oval Office he actually praised the tougher Mexico enforcement of our border rules. You know, we had told yesterday they were thinking about a plan B where they close the border but they let commercial traffic go back and forth. But here's the critical number, and that is during the month of March, when there were, you know, the suggestion is 100,000 migrants heading that way. only 90% of them went in spaces that were not the ports. So in other words, only 10% of the illegals were captured at the ports. 90% went between the ports. So in other words, if you close the ports, you close the roads, that's going to have little effect on illegals. And I think they realize that.
That makes sense. That's why the president is saying if we close some of these borders and we take the patrol officers and we put them in the desert areas, because that's clearly where everyone's going. Exactly.
Secretary Nielsen's going to go to the Yuma border today. She's going to be there most of the afternoon. The president's going to San Diego tomorrow. And hopefully something comes out of Congress, because that's where this thing's going to be solved. The wall is a separate issue. Meanwhile, Raul Ortiz is the deputy chief on the Rio Grande Valley sector of the border. And he talked about to Sean what he's seen.
Certainly, we're experiencing a crisis right now. So far, this sector has already seen 141,000 apprehensions this fiscal year. Just in the last 24 hours, we've made over 1,200 arrests. We seized 30 pounds of cocaine, 400 pounds of marijuana. All of us are stretched awfully thin right now. We need to make some changes to the loopholes out there.
Especially
we need to deter this traffic from actually crossing.
And speaking of Texas, yesterday, about 15 miles from Dallas in Allen, Texas, ICE had one of the largest workplace raids they've ever had. They arrested 280 workers at a tech repair company. Apparently they were working in the country with forged documents, something like that. They got tips from people who were working there, and they went in, arrested 280 people yesterday.
We told you yesterday that the House Judiciary Committee was going to be voting on whether or not the Democrats really want to see